William Walker was born William Robert Bellany in Newington, Surrey, England in 1869. Around 1900 he adopted the name William Bellany Walker, eventually dropping the Bellany part to be known as Walker. In 1887 he began diver training at Portsmouth Dockyard. He worked through the roles of diver's attendant and diver's signalman, passing his medical exam and deep water test to qualify as a deep water diver in 1892. In his time, Walker came to be the most experienced diver of Sea of Gorman Limited, a British company that developed diving and breathing equipment and worked on commercial diving and marine salvage projects. Arguably Walker's greatest diving project of his career was the salvaging of Winchester Cathedral between 1906 and 1911, after the building had begun to sink in the early 1900s. Walker was called into the role soon after the cathedral's collapse had seemed completely inevitable. Hope had come when the project's engineer, Francis Fox, had the breakthrough idea to call in a deep-sea diver to go into the murky, waterlogged foundations and strengthen them with bags of concrete. The rest, as they say, was history.
Winchester Cathedral was founded on a floodplain going back many thousands of years, and this meant that the foundations of the cathedral were on pretty poor ground, a mixture of sand, silt, marley clay and, worst of all, peat. And the cathedral has stood for 1,000 years, but some 100 years ago, in early 1900s, the architect of the cathedral, John Colson, reported that there were serious settlement problems and the east end of the cathedral was subsiding. He noted that at the west front there was fragments of stone falling down. In the crypt there were alarming cracks and falls of plaster. The south wall of the rectory choir was leaning at an alarming angle, and he summed up by saying, "It's not my desire to be alarmist, but he felt it his duty to invite the very serious attention of the Dean and Chapter to these problems."
Freeman Fox and Partners, who were the engineers, very, very distinguished firm of engineers, who had looked at the condition of the cathedral, were quite clear that it was in danger. I mean, in other words, walls were obviously beginning or about to move, which might eventually have brought the cathedral down. And that was the basis upon which, of course, the money was obtained to carry out this really colossal operation of underpinning the whole of the east end of the cathedral, which Walker did, and also doing work down the nave as well, which is on rather higher ground. There wasn't so much of a problem with the nave, but it was the east end with the transepts north and south, and of course the great weight of the tower above the central crossing, which was causing the problem, and that's what had to be stabilised, and Walker stabilised it.
One of the first things to do was to prop up the leaning walls with large timbers, and here you have pictures of these at the south transept and along the east retrochoir wall. And here is the more timbering and scaffolding which was erected inside of the cathedral to support the roof, which was showing signs of falling down. One of the first things they did was to insert liquid cement into the cracked walls to solidify it before they started doing anything else. And then the engineer in charge, a man called Francis Fox, who was renowned for working in problem projects underwater, he devised a scheme whereby the cathedral construction people could dig down in pits beside the walls, and they would dig down until they almost reached the solid gravel layer, and then they would send down a diver, and he cleared the last bit of peat which sat above the watery gravel, and then all the water came gushing in, and then they were able to lower down to him bags of dry mixed concrete, and he laid these bags on the rough gravel layer, and he laid about 3 layers of these, and they set and became solid concrete, and then they were able to pump out the water from the pit without any more water coming in. And having pumped out the water, they then had a nice dry pit down which the masons could go to build a new solid foundation on top of the now set solid concrete bags, connecting up underneath with the old original foundation of the cathedral. And they carried out this around the entire cathedral and took 5.5 years, and altogether William Walker, the diver, placed some 26,000 bags.
He demonstrated amazing perseverance. So I think the things, you know, to say about him, he virtually didn't lose a single day's work, hardly, over the whole of the 6 years. He was Sebe Gorman's best man, their top diver. And another quote from the book, he was doggedly determined to complete the job at Winchester. And I think in the day, I know it's very sad, I don't like this expression, the snowflake generation. I think it's a bit cruel on them. But there is a tendency today to do things and give up very easily. He kept going, and it must have been hard for him. He went down for 3 hours and worked on his own. He didn't have a phone or any communication. He worked for 3 hours on his own. He then came up and smoked his pipe because he believed, in those days, he believed the nicotine would keep the germs from the dead bodies and the graves away from him. And then he'd go down for another 3 hours. So it was quite amazing what he did do.
The foundations, which of course are ultimately based on wood, were being weakened by changes in water level, which meant that the supportive character of the woodwork was deteriorating, and that had to be replaced by concrete, and that's below water level. Of course, the wood will survive all right in water, but if the water level begins to drop, the wood that's above the water begins to decay, and that's what had gone wrong. And Walker had to go down and replace those Norman period, I mean, you know, late 11th century, early 12th century, wooden foundations by concrete, bags of concrete, and it had to be done at and below water level. So that was why he had to go down in a diver's suit.
The solid gravel layer, well below the cathedral, was deeper down towards the east end of the cathedral as it got near the river. So that is the main reason why the worst of the settlement and subsidence occurred at the east end of the cathedral. It was a major project, and in today's money it cost some £10 million, which the dean in charge of the cathedral had the responsibility for raising all those funds, which was quite a new concept in those days. And here's a picture of the large team of workers who were on the project with William Walker in the middle.
I've done some odd jobs in my life.
It was such a major occasion that they invited the King and Queen, King George V and Queen Mary, to come to a Thanksgiving service on July the 12th, 1912. And this is a picture of the King and Queen arriving. And those of you who know Winchester will know that that's the statue of King Alfred, who died in 899. So in a way he is welcoming the King and Queen of the time.
Miles away from ocean, no fish swim round here. Can't see a thing, still I'm working my time. I am the Winchester diver.
The service was lovely in that they actually played the same hymns that were sung at the first service at St Swithin's Day in 1912
I'm all
when King George V
alone
and Queen Mary attended that as a thanksgiving for the
using my
cathedral being
hands to
saved. And they played the same hymns in 1964 for the unveiling, and then the same hymns again
no
they
fish
played
swim round here.
when we went in October this year.
Can't see a thing and I'm missing my wife. I am the Winchester diver. A 100,000 concrete blocks, near 1,000,000 bricks. Darling, when you first said yes, did you see it come to this? 5 years working underground, I am a stranger to the sun. I think of letters you might send, there for me when day is done. And I am miles away from ocean, no fish swim round here. Can't see a thing, still I'm working my time. I am the Winchester diver. Can't see a thing and I'm missing my wife. I am the Winchester diver.
I mean, the whole story's strange about a cathedral and a diver, but then that they actually got the image wrong, it caused a huge stir. It was in the Telegraph and the Times and on the everywhere. People couldn't work it out, and the family were quite upset when they first saw that one. But when we went to the unveiling of the image of my grandfather, the people in the pew behind us were the relatives of Sir Francis Fox, and they were absolutely lovely. And I said to them, how do you feel the fact that your father's statue is being taken out and our grandfather's going in? And they were very, very happy about it and humble about it, and said they were really thrilled that the right image of him was going in there. So that was
brilliant.
a lovely moment for us.
I think if he hadn't done it, the cathedral would have been in very great danger. On the other hand, I do feel that if he hadn't done it, somebody else would have been found. In a sense, he was lucky enough to do it, and he stuck it out throughout the whole operation. I mean, getting to the diving suit like that every day, going down, working under some pressure of all kinds, coming out, getting rid of it, going down again the next day. Heroic, I think, is the only possible word to use.
14th of December 1908, the Times put a quote, "All the world would be the poorer if Winchester Cathedral were not to endure." And when I took my daughter down there when she was about 7, the guides there are so lovely. And one of the guides said to her, "Now just stand here." And this was in the corner of, where the crack appeared. And he said, "Look down there. If it hadn't been for your great-grandfather, that wall wouldn't be here, that wall wouldn't be there, and this beautiful cathedral would not be there." So that's his lasting legacy, that he's left us that magnificent, magnificent cathedral.